807 Brooks, can you send me Border Patrol? There's people in the back with a tarp.
This is an NCIC operator calling from Coastal Bend Inmate Facility with a prepaid collect call from. Happy New.
Tell me why you are in jail, basically.
Human smuggling.
What's more profitable to, drug smuggling or people smuggling? What's your take on that?
Right now, the money's in the people.
My name is Jay Root. I'm an investigative reporter at the Texas Tribune. So it started when I was assigned to cover what we call Families Divided. That was the name. That was our logo for internally at the Texas Tribune for basically covering the separated families. And I made a bunch of calls and started talking to immigration lawyers. And one of them turned me on to a case in Livingston, Texas, of a guy who she said was told that if he would agree to be deported, he would be reunited with his daughter, and then they could leave together. And so she was actually in Livingston, and she said, I'm just leaving there. Would you want me to see if I can get you on the guest list as just a friend? And so I said, sure. And so she signed my name up, and I went in and talked to him, and he told me his story. And I asked him to give me the numbers of his wife and his mom and any phone numbers back in Honduras that he could give me. We call him Carlos. He's in the movie, of course, in the documentary. And so I started calling, and it developed into stories. So we did news stories on it. And I had done a previous documentary called Beyond the Wall, and so I was like, this sounds like it could be a good documentary, actually. So I just started filming everything and started hiring video. It was my idea. I mean, I basically said, this could be a good opportunity. And it was right around that time that we were partnering with Time. Time wanted somebody on the ground in Texas, and they reached out to the Texas Tribune, and my editor said, well, Jay Root is in South Texas, and so we ended up hooking up, and they loved the idea, actually, of doing a documentary. And so it was just at the very beginning of, before we were doing any kind of video stuff and we were writing stories. The idea came from the very first interview that I had with Carlos in detention, and he was talking about how difficult it was for him to call home and how much it cost and how he felt shut off from the world, and the things that he was describing to him, like, how much it cost to call and everything, was like, God, these people get ripped off. And that's the reason, a lot of times the reason they're coming here in the first place is they get extorted on, and so that extortion makes them want to leave, and then they have to pay these coyotes, and then they have to pay the cartel, and then when they get out, they get into the private prison industry, and they feel like it's the same type of abuse. And so that was where the spark of the idea came, of like tying it all together as one big money-making machine. That's really where I got the idea from it. And so I thought that because I had done this documentary before, I thought, and I can always abandon it if I wanted to, or just do a quick hit video on something. But the deeper I got into it, the more I realized this could be a powerful documentary. Last year is when we had that first interview with Carlos in Livingston, Texas, at a detention facility. And the last interview that I did was with a coyote, a smuggler in Reynosa. Well, that was the last one I did. We actually did some after that, now that I think of it. We did some of the experts we got after that. But I got out of the field, so to speak, off the border in October. And I think we were doing interviews up until like January, actually. Maybe even February and early February. And then private prison interviews were done a little bit later were done in early 2019, and everything else was done between June and December of 2018. That's one of the toughest things, really, because they don't, you can't just like go, hey, we'd like to come do a tour. They don't, that's not okay. They're not, it's very difficult. So we don't have any of our own private prison footage. All of the private prison footage is Time got that. Time may have gotten some of that, but that was all archival type footage that Time had and stuff that they bought from, I don't know, Getty and different, whoever are in the credits. I do think it's a good thing that we're paying more attention to the northern triangle of Central America, Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador, but we need to pay more attention to how we in the United States are connected to it through our foreign policy, through our hiring policies, through our workplace, through all of the drugs that we consume in this country and fuel these cartels that then are used to traffic people. We don't make those connections enough.